But we got news in Clearwater. We got Phillies baseball. Frank, we're 1 week away. I guess less than a week now. This game is in the books, so we're less than a week away from opening day as the Phillies will take on the Braves in Atlanta. And they are finishing up the Grapefruit League portion of their schedule with a loss today to the Tigers. But really the big story, Frank Klose, was Jake Arrieta made his debut. How did he look?
Looked pretty good. There was a little bit of rust that kind of came through. He actually started out the game by striking out the leadoff hitter on 3 pitches, struck out the next guy. Then he gave up a bomb to Miguel Cabrera, but everybody does that, right? And then there was another run that they scored against the Phillies in the second inning where a ball that was a wild pitch that might be some spring trading rust might have helped contribute to that run. He might have scored anyway, but it was really his first time on the mound. Was throwing mid-90s, so it looked pretty good. Although, again, this is his first outing in 2018 spring training, and so you kind of got what you expected for a pitcher's first outing, which is 2 innings, and had a couple little bumps there on the way.
So after the game, he kind of said he admitted that he had some nervous energy there, but did he give any indication of when he thinks? Now, before we get to that, will he throw again in Clearwater?
Well, I think on Tuesday, because the last game in Grapefruit League action is on Tuesday at home against Pittsburgh. My guess is he would start that day. Although, as has been the case throughout the spring training, they haven't really announced the starters that much in advance. But I think we'll see him for the very last Grapefruit League game, and then they'll have to decide if he's ready to begin the season in the rotation, or if he stays back behind in Clearwater and maybe throws some simulated games or some minor league games to try to get back up to where he was. Now, the Phillies could have him throw a minor league game as the Phillies are playing in Atlanta, and then he could rejoin them later because the off day on Easter Sunday gives them a little bit of flexibility, and then there's another day off on the 6th of April. So there's a little bit of flexibility there. They could actually go a little bit later without using him if they felt like he has to stay back in Clearwater. So I think they'll see how his side days go, and probably pitch Tuesday, and then maybe they can make a better determination after that.
Right, because it sounded like, that he thought he would be ready for the first week. Today he sounded a little unsure.
Yeah, there's some talk. They were hoping maybe he'd go 3 innings today, but he went 2 innings. And really, that's pretty much what you hope to get out of any starter in his first spring training outing. So he's kind of where, Aaron Nola was on February 27th instead of being March 22nd,
Frank Klose, who spent plenty of time down in Clearwater with the Phillies. Jake Arrieta throwing today. Now, I saw Lively throw on Tuesday's game that got rain shortened. At this stage, do you think Lively is in the rotation?
It's really hard to say. The kind of the question here is Zach Eflin and what they're going to do with him. Does he have advanced standing because he's been at it longer? That's what I'm kind of curious about. Right now, it'll be of Nick Pivetta, Zach Eflin, and Ben Lively. 2 of the 3 are going to end up starting the season in the rotation. It seems one of them might end up being stashed at AAA. If it were me making the decision, I probably would go Lively and Pivetta. But they might give Eflin a little bit of advanced standing. But I kind of wonder if Lively could get squeezed because they really like Pivetta's arm, and I don't think they want to waste that arm in the minor leagues. But it's going to be a really tough call, and it could go down to the very end. Hopefully nobody else gets injured. Since the Phillies are without Mark Leiter Jr. now, thanks to an injury. It would probably be helpful to them if all 3 were on the major league roster, but there's still a lot to flesh out. It feels like a lot of their relievers all kind of give you the same output. They're all profile as similar pitchers. A lot of the right-handed arms with a little bit of power. It might be nice to see if you could take somebody like Nick Pivetta and kind of convert him into a reliever. That's something I personally would have done before spring training began, but if he can help you in the bullpen and the others start, that might help make up for Mark Leiter Jr. as well.
Frank, of those 2 injuries, the forearm tension there, and for Mark Leiter Jr. and the Jared Eichhoff, the strained lat, which one of those concerns you more?
Well, the lat is something that pitchers could come back from in 6 weeks, but in a way, the only way to really remedy it is to really just shut them down and give them some rest. And I think the unfortunate thing here is the Phillies really need to see what they have with Jared Eichhoff. And last year didn't go so well as he battled some injuries. And I know that this was sort of a real opportunity for him to show people that he belongs in a major league rotation. And that what we saw in 2016 is really an indication of who Jared Eichhoff is. So I think that's in terms of a level of disappointment, that's going to be much greater. In terms of Leiter, he really pitched so well early on, and up until that very last game where he suffered the injury, I mean, he was striking everybody out left and right, and he really just had this mound presence that really impressed a lot of people. I think that Leiter was going to be somebody who could possibly work his way towards the back of the bullpen into high leverage situations. So, I mean, of the two, you want your number 2 starter, or I guess he'd be now number 3 with Arrieta. You kind of want him there and firing on all cylinders, probably more than your long man in the bullpen. But I think the Phillies will definitely miss both, because when they're both pitching well, they can really add a lot to a pitching staff.
Well, let's get to the lineup then, and some of the starting positions, some of the positions that are around the field. Specifically,
real quick on that before you get to the lineup.
No problem. I was thinking Rhys Hoskins. You go where you want.
No, I wanted to get a quick pitching thought, because they got 2 spots, right? Frank, Eichhoff is with Eichhoff out. They got 2 spots. So Lively, Pivetta, Eflin, those 3 are in. You got Leiter with the arm problem kind of out of the mix at this stage of the game. But that first week of the season, there's 2 off days, right?
Yeah, so Easter Sunday, April 1st, that's an off day. And then Friday, April 6th is an off day as well. So, yeah, so they could potentially skip. If they wanted to give Arrieta more time or skip somebody, they could essentially go 2 times through the rotation before they need a final starter.
So who you think Pivetta is ahead of Lively, so that means Lively could be the odd man out, and then Arrieta would be on track to start, in your opinion, when? In New York or the home opener?
That's a really good question. The home opener is Thursday, April 5th. You know, that might be a fun thing to do if you're the Phillies and you're going to hold him back a little bit to make his first start be the home opener. But if he's going to start April 5th, that means that if he pitches on the 27th, he's going to have to he kind of won't be on turn there. So they might have had to find a way to squeeze maybe a shorter outing in. So I don't know if as neat as that would be that he gets to start the home opener. It might be a little too much playing around with the rotation if he's not ready. I mean, the Phillies could pitch him on the 27th, think he looks good, have him pitch some side sessions and then try it. But I don't know. It sounds like today that might not be a possibility. So I'd expect Arrieta the 27th, and that means his next start. You want to give him the 4 days rest. That would be normal. That puts him at like April 2nd. Do you really want to delay him a few days? I think you probably want him pitching a game and at least close to his normal rest. So I think that's a little bit too much of a stretch.
The 8 days rest is your red flag in that scenario.
Right.
Frank Klose with us here, talking a little Phillies baseball. Phillies fall at a 6-2, but Jake Arrieta takes the mound for the first time, goes 2 innings. 2 innings, 3 hits, 2 runs, both of them earned, 2 strikeouts, that 1 home run to Miguel Cabrera. And, of course, his son talked to him about that as soon as he came off the field, right? Frank, his son said, "Dad, what are you doing? You gave up a home run."
Yeah, well, Miguel Cabrera hits home runs off of everybody, so I don't think he should feel so bad.
I did hint earlier that I wanted to talk a little bit about the lineup because I know Rhys Hoskins looks like he's already in good shape. Kingery's gotten a lot of attention. And then you have an article on our website about some of the roster spots finally beginning to firm up and take shape.
Yeah, so it looks like they have made some cuts. A lot of them were the minor league free agents that they signed and gave a shot, like Fernando Abad is not going to make the Phillies bullpen. They released him. Ryan Flaherty is not going to make the bench as an extra man. So it kind of sets up for some young guys to make some shots. I still don't think that leaves room for Kingery. I think Yasmil Valentin is going to be your backup infielder. and Pedro Florimon will be kind of a swing outfielder, infielder. The Phillies added him to the 40-man roster already, something they would not have done unless they were ready to bring him on as in a bench role. And if they go with eight bullpen guys, then there really isn't a lot of room on the roster just yet. But Kingery is still hanging around, since you mentioned him, and it looks like Kingery is going to be probably with them till the very end. I think they want him to get as much experience as possible, playing with the major league club, so that when he goes down to AAA, he's going to be super hungry, and then he'll be up really soon.
Real quick on Kingery. If Kingery made the team, which we know he's not because of these ridiculous rules, he'd be a starter, right? And hitting in the top of the lineup.
That's a tough question. There's still no place for him yet. I mean, unless you're gonna mess up the development of J.P. Crawford, unless you're gonna what I think would be prematurely give up on Maikel Franco. Cesar Hernandez, certainly with his on-base percentage what it is, he certainly shouldn't be on the bench. So it's a tough matter of circumstance. Now, I think it would be more to the argument that they're just playing with the game around the rules and the roster rules and trying to keep an extra year of control. I think that would have a little bit more weight if there was a clear spot on the roster for him. Like a few years ago when Maikel Franco was going to come up, they sent Cody Ashley to AAA like 3 days in advance of Franco, who clearly was just waiting for that May, I think it was May 15th that year, where he would have gotten the extra year. This is a little bit different. There's really no clear place for him. There's not even a spot open in the outfield where you could shove him for right now. So until there's a clear space for him, I think he's got to go to AAA, even roster rules or not.
Andrew Knapp got the start of catcher today, catching Arrieta out of the gate, but Cameron Rupp was in the game late. Frank, what's the future hold for Cameron Rupp?
Well, there's one thing that the Phillies can do, and that is if they cut Rupp. He agreed to a deal that avoided arbitration. I think it was for $2.1 million. Well, the rules say that you can cut an arbitration year player and only pay 1/4 of his salary. So if they cut Rupp at the end of spring training, he'd be free to sign with any team he wants, and the Phillies would only be on the hook for about $500,000. So if they can't trade him, and there are reports out that the Phillies are gauging interest in Rupp around the league, then they might end up either cutting him and trying to save that money, but they don't need to save the money. I think if they did, it would kind of be for his benefit, too, to go find a new home. Or they could option him to AAA. And having a $2 million catcher at AAA insurance is a little bit steep, even for someone like Rupp that they already know and they like. So I would think it's more likely that he exits the organization than he sticks around, and the Phillies will go with Logan Moore and Matt McBride at AAA to serve as insurance in case either Knapp or Alfaro get hurt.
What's your take on Maikel Franco right now? Because that's a guy that he's entering a critical season, right?
Well, yeah, this is clearly make or break for Maikel Franco. The free agency class of next year looming. As I told you before, John Middleton, he stood there after the Arrieta conference and told me and a few others that he's got some names circled for next year's free agency. And we all know that among the people who are free agents next year are Manny Machado, who would be a great infielder on any team, even though he can't specifically say that because that's tampering. But we kind of all assume that the Phillies will try to make a big play on somebody like that. So if for nothing else, with Kingery at AAA, with the potential free agency looming of people like Manny Machado, this is it for Franco. So if he can't make it this year, then the Phillies will probably have to make a decision to move on one way or another. And if he shows he's got something like a lot of scouts think that he will have, and if he does have, then he becomes a trade piece where maybe they can get themselves some other resources for later. So this is the worst thing that could happen to Franco is he ends up hitting 200 because then the Phillies can't really trade him, and then he really hasn't earned a spot on the team either. So hopefully he can just get focused. Well, one of the things about bringing Carlos Santana into the Phillies is he's a Dominican superstar. Franco is from the Dominican Republic too. They put their lockers next to each other so that they're together a lot. And it really looks like that the the Phillies are trying every angle just to try to get the most out of that potential. And it behooves them for later, whether he's with the Phillies or if he moves on to another organization via trade. So it would mean a lot to the Phillies if they get a successful season out of Franco, whether he's with them long term or not.
And they played Scott Kingery over there the other day, right? I mean, is that trying to light
They've
up?
been playing him over there, and he's been playing pretty well.
And he made a nice little barehanded field. He fielded the ball with his bare hand and made a nice play too. So he's just such an athletic guy. I think they've reached the conclusion he can play almost anywhere, but something just has to open up first. And if it's going to open up at third base, it'll probably be because it's June and Franco's hitting under 200.
Well, let me ask you this then: do you think that it's automatic that Kingery is up the day that clock changes? No,
I don't. I think it'll be when there's a spot for him, and that might be because somebody is struggling. I mean, if J.P. Crawford's played very well this spring, but if J.P. Crawford is struggling to hit in the major leagues and Kingery is down at AAA batting .350, well, I think then they might have to shuffle some things around at least temporarily to kind of fix things there, or to give Crawford a time to get his head on straight. But in terms of the clock, I don't think they're going to be watching the clock so much. It'd be great if you have Kingery this year and 6 more years. There's no denying that. But I think that until there's a clear spot for him, he's going to be down at AAA, and that might not happen until, who knows, trade deadline. If there's a spot that opens, there's a lot that could happen, and I think that and certainly an injury too. We don't want to go down that road, of course, but if there's an injury, he could kind of be plugged in anywhere. So I don't think they want to go down that road, but whenever there's a place for him, I think they would bring him up.
Frank, this might be a question that's nobody can answer, but do you have any clue what this batting lineup might look like?
Well, I thought I had an idea, and then things kept seeming to change again and again and again. Well, if I had to guess today, just based on what I've seen so far while I was down there, I think you're going to see Hernandez lead off. I think Carlos Santana might bat second, Odubel Herrera third, Rhys Hoskins fourth. Whoever's playing right field, that's fifth, whether that's Aaron Altair or Nick Williams. And then after that, probably Jorge Alfaro. And then, then we get to the bottom of the lineup where the pitcher may bat eighth or he may not. Who knows? But that's how I would kind of project the first 6. And then that leaves you with I'm sorry, did I skip over saying Hoskins batting fourth? I think I just kind of assumed that. But
no, you actually added him in there.
Okay, good. I was afraid I took that for granted so much I skipped it. But yeah, I think you're going to see down batting 8th or 9th will be where Crawford gets to get his feet under him. So
it's just been so bizarre. Like Kingery was hitting 4th the other day. I mean, it's like, there's just no rhyme or reason. It's almost like he just picks it out of a hat.
Yeah, and it's really hard with these spring lineups because you're still trying to give people their days off every other day. So it's like each day you come in unless you've committed to the day to play all the starters, and that's really only happened a few times. You might see that more over the next few days as the games wind down. But I would tend to think on Sunday and Tuesday, which are the last 2 games at Spectrum Field, we'll probably try to field the opening day lineup and kind of go from there. But when you're constantly plugging in the reserves, so that you don't want to wear out your starting lineup in spring training before the season starts. So I think there's just a lot of shuffling because of that at this point. But on Sunday and on Tuesday, I think we're going to see pretty close to what the starting lineup's going to be.
All right, Frank Klose, the Phillies getting ready for opening day. A week from today, they will open up the season. It'll be Aaron Nola getting the start against the Braves. They finish out the spring training portion of the schedule. There's no on deck games this year, right?
Exactly what I was thinking.
Thank you, Lord. Those games were they were a lot of fun in the beginning, but having the Pittsburgh Pirates play 2 games before the season, I think they finally realized that had run its course.
Yeah. It was always cold and rainy, and I'm right there with you.
And they gave most of the tickets away anyway to the 5K people and whatnot. So it got to the point where it really wasn't doing anybody any favors. So So no more on-deck series, but what's probably good for the players is they get a quick breather before they have to head down to Atlanta.
He's Frank Klose, at Frank Klose on Twitter. Don't forget his mailbag is open every Tuesday on the show. We answer your mailbag questions, and you can send them to Frank every day. He'll answer your questions at Frank Klose on Twitter.